think that's something I definitely have to learn, because I don't think I tap into the peace of God as much as I can.
Me, at least, it's like I've tried that, I've done that, it doesn't work. So why am I still doing that? Like, you know, at some point in life, you have to get to a point where it's like, I've been knocking my head the same way, trying to be the driver, trying to be the passenger that's trying to be the driver. You know, I've done all of that.
And I do want us to kind of go through them. I think I'm looking at it, there are 4 that I have written here. Today, to discuss with me is Debbie. I reached out to Debbie because I believe she is the perfect person to discuss the subject matter of rest with. In a world where the only worthy priority seems to be striving, I believe she's consistently showed that she's able to fit work around her life and not her life around work, and has been an example of what it means to be resting and be mindful of rest in our kind of fast-paced world. So welcome everyone, Debbie. She is a mom, she is a sister, she is a wife, she is a GPN nurse, and she is also the founder of GPN Gateway. Look for her on Instagram, follow. Very helpful, very useful information. So welcome, Debbie.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have you here. Honestly, I feel like in the subject matter of finding time, I do really appreciate it when people give me a bit of their time. So I really am thankful. So the first question that I have for you is a pretty straightforward one, where you have kind of, I feel like I was thinking about it today. I feel like you've always kind of been like that to a certain extent. You've never been one that is too stressed out. I don't remember you being a very stressed out person. And I wonder where you think that resolution came from to not like being the rat race that everybody gets caught up in. Where do you think you have that from?
So I think I probably have 2 answers. One is probably my mum. Never seen my mum, you know, chasing after things. She would always put her safety first, and what she can do, she will do. What she can't do, she won't do. There was never a picture of I need to be doing. And then the second answer would be just the peace of God. Like, honestly, I mean, yes, life will throw things at you and you will have your times of worry. But one thing that I always advise people is that no matter what stage in life you're in, there's always going to be something to worry about. If, for example, if you're single, you're thinking about marriage. If you're married, you're thinking about when am I going to have children? If you're having children, you're thinking about how they're going to grow up. You're thinking about your job. You're thinking about, am I going to buy a house? There's always going to be something to worry about each stage in life. So if that is the case, then I don't think I have the capacity to live my whole life in that state of worry. And so I try my best to say, if I can control this, I would, control it. I can't.
Yeah, I think that's something I definitely have to learn, because I don't think I tap into the peace of God as much as I can. There is this kind of need to feel like I'm in the know. Sometimes I feel like a kid at when you're sitting behind the driver and you're trying to like see, and it's like, you don't need to know how the car is moving. You're in the car, you're fine. But yeah.
Me, at least, it's like, I've tried that. I've done that. It doesn't work. So why am I still doing that? Like, at some point in life, you have to get to a point where it's like, I've been knocking my head the same way, trying to be the driver, trying to be the passenger that's trying to be the driver. I've done all of that. It's not working. So evidently I need to change my strategy in order for better results. So I think, like I said, it's not that, I was just born this way. I've had my moments of worry. I've been in those stages. But there needs to come a point in life where it's like, this is too much. God, I just give it to you.
Yeah. And to that point, that's kind of the stage where I got to. And that's when I reached out to you. I think I don't even know how we got to talking, but I remember ranting and be like, I am so tired of everything. I was like, I'm working full time. I'm very involved in kind of ministry. So I feel like my weekends are also work, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying, when is the time of rest for the Christian? Like, what happened to the Sabbath? It was it was part of the 10 Commandments as well. Why are we not practicing it? And kind of feeling kind of trapped almost, because you want to do the right thing, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like the healthy thing to do, because you get to a point where you're burning out and you're like, how am I burning out doing the right thing? And I remember you really convicted me, because I was thinking, I'm a dropout of 1 or 2 ministries. I'm a peace out and be in the congregation so I could go to less meetings and do less things. And then you said something that stuck with me. You were like, why is it that whenever we feel overwhelmed and we know that we need to cut back, the first things we want to remove from our plates are the things of God? And I was like, damn. In all honesty, I don't think I've told you this, but that led to a whole thing that now I cut back on my hours. I work 4 days a week,
Awesome.
because I needed that rest. I knew I needed it, but I also knew that God was using this time in ministry for a reason, and he didn't want me to sacrifice that. So I had to have the faith to sacrifice money instead, and we will go into that in a second, and what rest sometimes can cost. So we're going to dive into the book a bit. The book is a very beautiful book. I think the author took the approach of what he was speaking about. So he wasn't very, nowadays a lot of self-help books are very like, let's get straight to the point. Let's distill it to 5 top points and run through them. That was not the tone of the book at all. It took its time to explore themes. It was very theatrical in the way it described things. It's a lovely listen. And one thing that kind of stuck with me is that he divided the themes of, the Sabbath into 2 dimensions. So he said the first dimension is Godward, and the second dimension is timeward. So the Godward dimension is, you cannot rest unless you trust God. Because the reason why we feel like we need to go and do is because we feel like if we let go, it's going to fall.
Yeah.
We feel like if we stop, the world is going to stop. Like the world as we know it will stop.
Yeah.
And kind of having that trust in God that even if I stop, he's the one that holds the universe in place. We will be fine. Mm-hmm. That is the first thing, not being able to trust God enough to let go, even for a minute, because the idea of the Sabbath, he kind of explores it in a very realistic way. So it's not the idea that you're constantly living in Sabbath, because that's not how it was intended to be. It's taking a time out, kind of sanctifying a certain amount of time for rest. That is what the Sabbath kind of theology is. And in that time that you've set out for rest, can you let go? Is the question. What do you think is that thing in us that does not allow us to let go, to believe that when we let go, things are going to be all right?
I always tell people that life is just too complex for us to always have a 1 + 1 = 2 approach to life. There's fears, there's, anxiety, there's pride, there's a sense of independence. There's so many, reasons. I think I can use myself as an example. So before I had my first child, I was doing everything, just go. And in my pregnancy, it was very complicated in the beginning. I was sick all the time. Like, it was just all over the place. And I had to shut down. Like, I had to stop everything I was doing. And the beauty in that is that a lot of people began to rise up to do the things that I was doing. And it made me think that, like you said, the world actually does go on, even in ministry where you feel somewhat irreplaceable. pride within us that, I'm doing this, so therefore, that's the reason why everything is functioning. But no, like I always tell people, the kingdom of God will go on. Whether you decide to backslide tomorrow or you decide to not come to church, God will build his church. Everything will function as it should function. And of course, we all do have our place, as it says in the Bible, there's the eye, there's the leg, there's all these parts, and we do. But at the same time, God is limitless. So, I think we as human beings, again, there's the fear element. We've grown up in a certain way and we fear lacking. We fear to not have, if it's a financial thing, or we fear to not be in control of a situation because human beings let us down. But it's the understanding that God won't let you down, or the way you want it to play out isn't per se how God may want it to play out. And so there's just so many factors. And I think sometimes when you sit down within yourself and ask yourself, why is it that I'm afraid? Or why is it that I'm like this? Why am I like this in the first place? And when you have that honest conversation with yourself, you're able to then move forward, because it doesn't just stop at one thing. It plays out in so many other areas of your life. You think it's just ministry. You get married and you find you want to control there. You have children, you find that you want to control the child's life. There's going to be so many areas in which certain characteristics manifest itself. And so until you have that conversation with yourself, it's going to follow you to the grave.
Yeah, I think for me, when I had to, because I was like, it was a whole thing before I dropped the day for my work week. And I remember God told me quite clearly to drop the day at a certain point in time. And it took me months to do it. And when I finally obeyed, delayed disobedience, guys, don't do it. I do not recommend. Because when I actually finally did it, it took forever for it to be enacted, because it just became way more of a longer process than it should have been. And I keep asking myself, like, why was I holding on? Because I don't need the money. Like, it wasn't the kind of thing where I would have, been struggling to pay bills or rent. Like, by God's grace, now I live back at home. I'm fine. But I think what it was is I always believed that I had to make a certain amount of money to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And when that amount was going to be docked down, there's a part of me that was like, I've never considered this scenario before. I've never considered this scenario where this is not the case and I have to make do anyway. And I have to trust God to provide. And God had to show me, see, your trust was in the number in your bank account. The trust was not in me to provide. You were thinking you were going to be all right because you saw this number every month, not because I am Jireh. So it really was a lesson for me to kind of realize, oh, where else do I not trust you? Like you said, it shows up here, but then it shows up everywhere. And then it's like, where else am I not having this? So I'm not resting even in my soul about my future, about my desires, about just everything I'm doing. What is it that is making me anxious, Yeah. But yeah, the second dimension is time word, right? So by time word, it's the concept. He took so long to explain the concept. I don't know how I'm going to basically give a synopsis of what the concept is, but he said something where he was like, purpose drivenness erodes purposefulness. And how he explained that is that when one has a purpose. So the best example I could think of was, say, stereotypically a man of the house, right? He has a purpose where he wants to provide and protect his family, right? He cares about his family. He wants to make sure that they're taken care of, right? That is the purpose. And how to achieve the purpose is to work, right? Drivenness, in the way that he poses it, is this need to kind of go. And this idea that the more you're driven to do something, the easier it is to forget why you're doing it. So working longer hours, being too tired when you come back to be able to even engage with your child, being kind of corrupting this kind of wanting to do, forgetting that this is a means to an end and making the means everything. And this idea that we can very easily idolize productivity and idolize the act of doing more and making more and going higher and beating your last record, and kind of creates this sense where we forget why we were doing what we were doing in the first place. We forget what the intention was in the first place. And sometimes it's at the cost of that intention. Mm-hmm. And he spoke about people that are generous with their time versus people who are stingy and greedy with their time. And the idea that generous people tend to give away their time, but they tend to enjoy it more. So spending that extra time to, say, play with your child and enter into their world of imagination and just allow them to do all their thing and to tell you, when kids reach that stage where they say the same story in the most long-winded, non-coherent way possible, and you have to be like nodding and be present and affirm, and doing all of that might feel like a waste of time, mm-hmm. but truly he defined it as redeeming time.
Yeah.
As truly making good use of time, versus you have a strict timetable and you're like, at 10 o'clock, I have to be doing this and I need to sit in front of my laptop and I can't. And that actually robs you of time, although you think you're managing it well. So what can you say about that conflict of being able to waste time, almost knowing how to be generous with our time, and kind of letting go of that need to micromanage our schedules?
Yeah. Oh, that's a tough one because the reason why it's a tough one is because I've never been, someone who is so routine based, like, I've got to do this and do. So I couldn't even empathize with somebody who is that way, because I don't actually know what it feels like to, be so strict. Because if I'm tired, I'm going to bed. If I can't do this, I'm not doing it. Like, I've just never been one to do that. And I think even motherhood highlights it even more, because there's 1 million things to do. Like, the plates are piling up, the laundry's piling up, everywhere's a mess, blah, blah. And your child is demanding of your time. And, at some point, because obviously motherhood was new to me, in my mind, it's like, okay, I've got to get everything done. I've got to have the laundry. I've got to cook the food. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. But then I sat down and I thought, at what cost? At the cost of, my child, wants to do this, and I want to sit down and actually play with her and do this and do that. And I realized that that's what I would rather be doing, than doing the laundry and those things will get done. They will get done eventually, just not in the time frame that I think it should be done, or, having that pressure on myself. And so I think, like I said, it is a tough one. And I think, of course, there's, prioritization and things like that, but yeah, it's so difficult. I don't know. And it's crazy because I can think of people in my head that can answer this question very well, because they do so much. They, I know someone who's a homeschooling mother, and she runs a business as well, successful business. And she's, started off with having all these clients, and then she's cut it back because, I want to focus on homeschooling my children, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Like, I'm doing all of this because of this. Like, there's having this successful business, and then my children tomorrow don't even know anything, or can't even, get by in life, with any form of knowledge. And so it's difficult. And I don't think I've done the question justice. But I do know that I think one thing that always is, obviously, yes, we know the scriptures, seek God, first, and his kingdom, and all other things will be added on to us. And I just always say to myself that I would never be robbed if I just put God first, meaning our first priority is, our home, our children. So if there's a case whereby I cannot wash the dishes, if I know that I'm teaching my child, imparting something, and of course, impartation does include how to keep a home and how to do all of these things, but, turning that into a military lesson as opposed to, actually spending time with them, then there's no gain in that way. So if it's a case of having to choose between nurturing, my child and being there in that way and running some military camp all in the name of routine, then what does the kingdom of God have? Like, what is that in terms of that scripture? Because that's my mantra. If it was between making money, going to church, seek first the kingdom. If it was between, going out with friends and, spending time with my husband, for example, scripturally, seek first the kingdom, scripturally, it's my husband. Do you get what I'm saying? So in every area of life, I try to use that scripture and think to myself, okay, what is, it could be something as simple as spend time with my friends, or there's a new convert who needs that one-on-one time. Seek first the kingdom is that new convert that needs that one-on-one time, or that needs that attention, little stuff like that. So I think, obviously having the purpose-drivenness, all of that stuff, it's just about, like, are you seeking? And it's crazy because I heard a sermon just yesterday about, the era of greatness and what we pursue and what we think greatness is and things like that. And all of these things can trickle into the kingdom, whereby it's like, I'm saying all of this stuff, and then there's a case of, the new convert or going home and spending time with my family. Like, okay, what do I do then? Because both are kingdom, both are kingdom worthy. So it's a case of, then apply wisdom and see where, God can help you in that way. But I think I'm going astray from the answer, but yeah, that's all I can say on that.
I think that's very helpful, to be honest, because sometimes we forget what the purpose is, and the purpose is the kingdom, right? So once you can keep that front of mind, it's easy to align everything else. It's easy to be able to not forget why you're doing what you're doing. Because I know for myself, sometimes I have to be like, I don't want to constantly be in a service where I can't gain because I'm doing a million things. I want to be able to I'm not perfect at it at all, but I'm becoming more mindful of asking myself, where do I glean? Where do I feed my inner man? Where do I sit on the teaching? Am I giving Martha or am I giving Mary? What's happening here? So I have to remember, okay, if I'm doing this for the edification of the saints, I'm a saint. I need to be edified as well. Am I seeing kind of this time of silence, of sitting down and listening, as a waste of time because I'm not producing, because I'm not kind of doing stuff? So it's really, or times when, I don't know, my sister has a theological question and I'm like, girl, I don't feel like explaining sanctification to you right now. You know what I'm saying? Because maybe I've just come back from work and I'm tired or whatever, but I need to remember this is the kingdom. This is the seeking first the kingdom. And this is priority above what I just think I just did, at work. So definitely. I think that really does help. Thank you for that. So once you establish those two kind of dimensions, so you establish, okay, I can trust God enough to let go. And also when I'm letting go, I am realizing that it's not about productivity, right? So it's not about this drive of doing more and being more. It's about purpose. Okay. So in that kind of sets us in the mood of the Sabbath, right? So then he goes on to say practices, right, of the Sabbath. And I do want us to kind of go through them. I think I'm looking at it, there are 4 that I have written here. And I think all of them are interesting because I want to see how we would do them. So the first is to seize that which is necessary and to embrace that which gives life. So the way he explained it is the whole point of the Sabbath was all the work that they had to do during the week. You couldn't engage in that. You couldn't do anything that you had to do. You only did things that you get to do. And the importance of that is whatever it is that we get to do, ideally you shouldn't you should find some solace in that. You should find some rest in that, because it's, for example, you get to go for a walk, right? With your daughter. You get to, maybe just watch a movie. As I know we are fellow homebodies, we don't necessarily have to go out, but you get to chill at home. You get to, and it's like, it's the time you've decided I'm not going to send that extra email. I'm not going to, like you said, wash those dishes. I'm not going to do the things I know I have to do. I'm purposefully opting out of that and doing what I get to do something that recreates you, is what he says. So something that gives you life, something that gives you like energy, refreshes you. So even being self-aware enough to figure out what are those things for me. I think some of us have lost that. We've forgotten what our hobbies are. We've forgotten what we enjoy. We just opt for doom scrolling because it's an easier, way of kind of dissociating, but that's not necessarily what revives you. So finding out what are the things that revive me, that feed my soul, that feed my spirit, and engaging in those activities. So that's one. The second thing is to play, to make time for play. But he added a caveat. He said, you cannot make it utilitarian. So you cannot make it useful. You cannot make it productive. So for example, if you enjoy drawing, don't also video a reel of you drawing to later on post on Instagram. If you're going for a walk, don't vlog it. If you enjoy photography, don't do it for a chat. Like, don't make it work now. Don't feel like it has to be productive. So in what ways do you think you've been able to do that, to find the play in life and to keep it play, to keep it enjoyable, not to add some sort of usefulness to it to justify engaging in it?
Do you know what? I feel like how do I explain it? So, for example, the other day, somebody was asking me, do you know there's so much money to be made in, the Black community about motherhood, when you post things online and you tell them where you do that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm very much aware that this, I follow them myself. But when those things become your source of income, it makes it different. Like, it's just, as soon as you put a camera on, everything is different. Like, whether you want to believe it or not, it's just going to be different. Like, as you want to be, you're not going to come on, on the camera with the drool on your mouth. Like, that's just the truth. Like, when you wake up. So I said that it robs authenticity. And I think the one thing that I then explained to her is that I'm grateful that I have a community. So I at no point in time do I feel the need to impart, if for lack of a better word, into people online or do things for other people to see, because I know that in my actual community, people see me in my everyday normal, like just normal living, and they're able to glean from it what they can, whatever. And likewise myself, I see people, every day, every Sunday, Wednesday, whatever other days that I'm, around them. And I just see them in their natural habitat, just doing and living life. So the idea of, having to come online or do things for, sometimes I post something and it could have been from like last year or something or 2 years ago, because I just want to be in that moment. And if you bring it back to Sabbath on a Sunday, like you said, in terms of what brings life and what, I love the fellowship. So I would go around to people's houses. They'll come around to my house. We'll play games. We'll do all of this stuff. But you would never really see it, because that literally brings me so much joy to see people who have been in church for 1 week or 2 weeks come around to other people's houses and just be with people who are also Christians that they probably never even thought, this type of thing would have existed in the world. It would think thought of, clubbing or, all these other things. But the idea of coming to, someone's house and being fed and doing all of that stuff, that brings me so much joy. And I don't think there's enough around. If people had genuine community outside of the online world, in reality, they wouldn't feel the need. Like, of course, yes, I record things and I do all of these things, but I mainly record it for my own memories. Like, I love to put videos together and, look at things. Literally, my phone will notify me that this time, I saw that this time 8 years ago, I went for an interview as a biomedical scientist, and I'm like, oh wow, like I can't believe, like and it's just seeing those memories brings so much joy to me, as opposed to it feels like it's past or something like that.
Mm-hmm.